How can we rebuild trust with our children and teenagers when we've hurt them? You might have shouted at them, criticised them, ignored them, blamed them, made choices that impacted their life in ways that you regret. As parents, we love our children so much, and it can be very distressing when we realise that we've hurt them. And this hurt can linger in our children, leading to anger, acting out, resentment, and perhaps most painful of all, them withdrawing from us. A really common situation that I hear from the parents I work with is, I've said sorry so many times, but they're still upset. They just sense that their child doesn't have the same easy trust with them that they used to, and they're quite lost what to do about it. In this video, I'm going to explore a really powerful way to rebuild trust with our children when things have gone off track. And I've personally verified this method many times in my long career of making mistakes with my children. These steps work really well whether this pain is a one-off situation, like you had a grumpy day and lost your rag at everyone, or a more challenging ongoing situation, like you may have done a lot of work to change your approach to parenting and you have a history of behaving towards your children in a way that you now regret. But first, why doesn't sorry seem to cut it with our kids? We are taught from a very early age that sorry is the only real way out of a tricky situation. We said or did something that someone else, usually a parent or a teacher, deemed wrong. We got told off, maybe punished a bit, and we said sorry. All done, fixed. Here is a mathematical equation for this. Forgiveness equals punishment times sorry. As small people in this adult-dominated world, we were not the deciders of whether we were right or wrong. The problem is sorry becomes tarnished in two ways. First, it means we did wrong. Wrong means shame. Shame means emotional pressure that we need forgiveness to be released from. But when we say sorry, that means admitting that we did wrong, so we're in a double bind here. To get forgiveness, we need to say sorry, but to say sorry means we did wrong. Wrong equals shame. Shame equals emotional pressure. Forgiveness is the only way to release this pressure, and in our world, forgiveness means sorry. For many of us, therefore, sorry is a really loaded and unfortunate word. When we say it, we're likely to experience a lot of shame that does not belong to that situation itself. The shame belongs to this legacy of being a powerless child in a confusing moral landscape dominated by powerful adults. Yuck! When we say sorry to our children, very often we will bring that yuck into it. We will want to defend ourselves from the pain and shame this equation is always brought in, and it's going to leak all over our children. Second, sorry is problematic because when we say sorry, it's supposed to bring forgiveness. It's supposed to remove some of this emotional pressure. That's the deal. We say sorry, we experience the shame of the wrongness, and then once we say it, it's supposed to all be over. But our children didn't get this memo. When our children are hurt, their emotional world has also been shaken up. If they're feeling angry and hurt about something we've done, they will have a lot of emotional pressure built up in them also. This thing that impacted them, it wants to be shared, it wants to be expressed. This emotional pressure wants to go somewhere too, but if we're operating from a sorry equals forgiveness paradigm, we want to put the lid on this as quick as possible. This can be so painful for children because they might feel some hope that they're going to have a chance to be heard or understood about how much this impacted them, how hurt they are. But they often just get shut off by a sorry. And unfortunately, all of that emotional pressure is still just there. The hurt, the pain, the confusion, whatever it is that was stirred up in your child just sits there, and periodically, and to our dismay, this pressure is just going to leak out. So what can we do instead? How can we release this pressure, preferably without it exploding in our faces? How can we clean up the mess? This is my repair method, a way that we can rebuild connection with our children when things have gone wrong using some of the principles of nonviolent communication. I want to illustrate this with an example I used in my previous video about guilt, and these two videos work together, so if you haven't watched that yet, you might want to have a look. The first step of repair is regulate yourself. Before you can actually repair anything with your child, you need to do some work to care for all of the emotional pressure that's built up in you. Putting a really tight cap on it is not going to work because the next step will be very difficult unless you've processed some of your own pain. So let's do this together. Grab a piece of paper and divide it into columns. In the first column, write down what actually happened in as objective language as you can. This is really important because when we're emotionally activated in relation to something, our mind quickly takes over and offers us helpful evaluations or interpretations of this event, and they become our remembered fact. So for instance, my recollection might become, I absolutely exploded and scared my poor kid to death. But what actually happened? Like in the real world, not in the over-dramatized movie version of my mind. A great way to think about this is, what would a video camera have seen? So in my case, I can write, I shouted, go to bed now. Once we're grounded back in the real world, we can look inside at what is the emotional residue of this event for us. What are you feeling about it? Here's the thing we tend to forget. Your child might be having an emotional reaction to whatever it is that happened, but you probably are too. So for me, in the moment it happened, I was frustrated, worried, overwhelmed. And in the aftermath, now I'm feeling a little bit sad and guilty. Taking time to notice and name your emotions is a really powerful way to process them because it completes the emotional circuit. Our emotions can get trapped in our subcortical regions, and by naming them, we're actually bringing them into our higher cortical regions, which completes the emotional circuit and helps us to move through them. The next step in column 3 is to have a look at your needs. Our needs or our values are the fundamental motivation behind all of our actions. Everything we do in order to meet some kind of deep human need. If we understand why we did something, the deeper human motivation behind our actions, it can help us to settle and understand our triggers a bit better. So what is it you were needing in that moment? What was so important to you? Was it that you were wanting cooperation? Maybe wanting some space? Were you wanting consideration? If you want some support to understand this needs language, you can download this really beautiful printable feelings and needs wall chart in the description below. What this does to notice our needs is to allow us to gently process whatever it was that was going on in us and creates a little bit of space, which is really important for the next step, empathy. Once we've created a little bit of space in our bottle, we're able to move back to their bottle. In order to repair their pain, we first have to hear it. And this means taking time to sit and listen while your child tells you what they feel, how mad they felt, how upset they are, how distressed. This is why we need a little bit of space in our own bottles first. The aim is to empty as much of their bottle as you can, which means hearing as much of their pain as they want to share. This may not all be in one sitting. If this is a one-off event, it may be a 5-minute conversation. If this is something very painful that has built up over a long time, it might take a number of conversations together over a longer period of time. The art of really hearing our children's pain is a really big topic and something that I go into in detail in my courses. But to start with, here are some quick pointers. You can start with something really open and curious. When I said go to bed last night and I shouted, I wonder if you felt upset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to tell me about that? I'd love to hear. By saying something like this, you're reassuring them that you're not going to just put a cap back on their pain. You want to hear what's going on for them. When you're listening, imagine that your only job is to just understand. Not understand logically. Hang on a sec, you're saying you felt hurt, but 2 seconds ago you were saying that you were angry, so I'm just wanting to check on that. Instead, we're wanting to understand with our hearts. The goal here is to really be moved by their words. Aim to listen until their pain really makes sense to you, at an emotional level, that it touches your heart. Reflecting back their feelings and their needs or the values that you hear are important to them can really help to give them some assurance that they're being heard. So you're feeling really sad?
Yeah.
Is it that you want to be spoken to kindly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Their temptation as soon as they start saying whatever they are hurt about will be to debate. Well, that's not quite how it happened. Or to defend. I was really trying to help you. Or to justify. You know, I was having a really rough day. There will be time for you to share and express soon, but this step is all about listening. What we want to do at this stage is to reduce this pressure as much as possible by just creating as much space for them to share as we can. Space, 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 space. Did you want to tell me anything about that? I'd love to hear. So we can just keep checking with them whether there's any more they want to share and reassuring them that we have more space to keep listening. Is there anything else you wanted me to hear? And the most important thing about this empathy is that it takes place within the context of your presence. It's not just that they're saying these things that are important to them, it's that they're saying them to you. What matters is that you're fully there with them and with what they're saying, not looking at your phone, not staring annoyed out the window, not waiting for your turn to speak, not thinking about what a little brat your child is being, but fully present. This can be quiet listening, silent listening. The most important quality is your attention. So once you've taken this time to hear your child's pain with empathy and presence, it's finally time for you to acknowledge the impact. You thought I was going to say apologize. And you're not far off, because this step has the same restorative function of an apology, but acknowledging has a deeper impact. Remember, the problem with sorry is that it can firmly slap the lid back on, and you've just invited your child into this really precious, vulnerable opening up with you. Sorry has the risk of shutting this down. It's about connecting and creating relationship and trust with our child, not about saying that we're wrong or aiming for forgiveness. So what you can do at this point is let them know that you understand what happened and you regret the impact it had on them. You're letting them know that you care. When I hear how hurt you are, I feel quite sad because I really want you to feel safe and cared for. How is that to hear? If you really are committed to using the S word, you can pop it in here if you like. But often this deep acknowledgement is more powerful. Once you have acknowledged their pain and why this brings up regret in you, it's likely that there will finally be enough space in your child to hear your intentions. What is it that was actually going on for you in that moment? This is not the same as defensiveness. This is about acknowledging that when you did whatever it was you did, it was really about you experiencing certain feelings and trying your best to meet certain needs or values that were really important to you in that moment. So what was your intention? What was it that you were feeling and needing in that moment? And we've already explored this when we were regulating ourselves earlier, so we can just come back to the values and needs that we noticed there. These intentions can be really important for children to hear because developmentally they are going to interpret adult actions as being caused by them. This is particularly true for younger children. So your child is very likely to interpret all of your actions in terms of their own blame and culpability, thinking, Mum shouted at me, so it must be my fault, or she doesn't like me very much, or I'm a terrible child. This is where painful core beliefs can come from, this kind of thinking. So when we do this work repeatedly with our children, we're rewriting those narratives that are forming in their developing minds and giving them a bit more context so that they can see that other people's actions are really about what's going on in that person, not really about them at all. So rather than cementing the view, I'm a bad person or I'm unlovable, your child can start to form a more nuanced view. Mum or Dad did this thing because they were tired, or because they were worried about my safety, or because they care about my health, or because they wanted some rest or support. The important thing here is to check that they're open to hearing it first, because if their bottle is still too full, they're not going to have space to hear. Did you want to hear what was going on for me in that moment?
Yeah.
And then just keep it pretty short and stick as close as possible to just describing what you were feeling and what you were needing. Well, I was really wanting to help you get enough sleep because I know you've been feeling quite tired and I really care for your health. And I guess I was feeling pretty tired too, so I didn't say it in a way that I would have liked. How is that for you to hear? Once you've shared your intention, you can close off this process really simply by just letting your child know what you plan to do differently next time. I think next time I notice I'm feeling tired, I'd really like to just take a break for a few minutes and rest and then come back to you. How would that be for you?
Yeah.
Or my favourite way is to include them in the problem solving. It sounds like you're wanting to be spoken to more kindly before bed and I'm wanting a little bit more rest.
Yeah.
Can you think of any ways we could do bedtime a bit differently so that we can both get what we need? Doing this step can be incredibly restorative because rather than just making mistakes, telling each other we're wrong and then slapping a sorry on top, we're really hearing the pain, acknowledging it, and then moving forward to something that can meet our needs better next time. It's allowing both of us to acknowledge things that didn't go well for us and make a plan so that next time we can treat each other in a way that works better. But in order for this repair method to work, the biggest block is our own guilt as parents. If we come into this process feeling overwhelmed with guilt, we're not going to have space to hear our child's pain, to acknowledge the hurt, or to come up with creative solutions to go forward. Because guilt is one of the biggest blockers of our ability to repair with our children, and it's also a really heavy emotional burden to carry. So the first step is to work through our own guilt, and in order to do this, you can watch this video here.
Hey. Hey.